5 feet 1 and under. Stand next to a parking meter at 4 feet 11 inches, and you might be looking at it eye to eye. Nothing about you screams danger, but your body has quietly swapped out parts under the hood, your heart's plumbing, your transplant odds, even how a car crash unfolds around you. Let's start with your heart. It runs on narrower pipes than a taller person's does. Studies tracking hundreds of thousands of people found that every few extra inches of height comes with a lower risk of coronary artery disease. That's when plaque clogs the arteries feeding your heart. Scientists think it comes down to pure plumbing. Your coronary arteries run narrower, so the same amount of plaque blocks a bigger percentage of the pipe. A garden hose and a fire hose can both catch a leaf. Only one of them turns into a crisis. Then there's a problem you won't see coming until you actually need it: lung transplants. If yours ever fail, the donor lungs have to be sized to fit your chest, and small lungs are rare. One study found patients under 5 feet 4 inches waited longer, got transplanted less often, and were more likely to die on the waiting list, not because they were sicker, but because their size almost never showed up in the donor pool. Height sneaks into other corners of your life too. A smaller pelvis can complicate childbirth. Sitting closer to the steering wheel changes how an airbag meets your face in a crash. Simone Biles is 4 feet 8 inches and strong enough to defy gravity on a balance beam. You're 4 feet 11 inches, and you just pulled something reaching for a mixing bowl on the top shelf. Same height bracket, very different Olympic events. 5 feet 2 to 5 feet 6. Your pants are always a little too long. You've mastered the small hop to see over a crowd at concerts. The top shelf isn't impossible, just annoying enough that you've thought about buying a step stool. At this height category, nothing feels impossible, but your body still finds ways to be dramatic. For starters, there's a higher risk of diabetes. Your muscles help control your blood sugar. After you eat, your muscles soak up a lot of that sugar and burn it for energy. But when you have a smaller body, oftentimes that means less muscle overall and less room to absorb extra sugar. Researchers who studied over 26,000 adults found shorter people, especially those with shorter legs, had a higher risk of type 2 diabetes, even at the same body weight as taller people. Picture pouring a full can of soda into a shot glass instead of a big cup. It's the same amount of liquid, but one overflows a lot faster. Then there's heartburn. Your stomach and diaphragm are packed into a shorter torso, with less space between them. Researchers found taller people had lower rates of acid reflux and hiatal hernia. That's just a fancy word for when part of the stomach pushes up through the diaphragm. Basically, less space in your abdomen means pressure has fewer places to go, but up. There's also a surprising link to your brain. Shorter height comes with a slightly higher dementia risk later in life. But scientists think this isn't really about the brain itself. It's more likely a leftover sign of childhood nutrition and health, since height is partly shaped by how well-nourished and healthy you were as a kid. You're close enough to average that nobody notices, but your stomach still knows you ate that whole burrito too fast. 5 feet 7 to 5 feet 9. Sometimes being average has its perks. No one clocks you in a crowd. Your knees don't hit airplane seats, and you've never had to ask a stranger to grab something off a top shelf. And yet, tucked inside that frame, your body is running quiet math problems most people never notice. Your brain runs on blood vessels that are, on average, a touch narrower than a taller person's. Large studies tracking stroke rates found risk dropped a little with every couple inches of height gained, more noticeably in women than men. Narrower vessels and slightly higher blood pressure both seem to play a role. Don't spiral over your tape measure, though. This effect is small next to things you actually control, like smoking and diet. Your liver has its own grudge. One study followed nearly 36,000 people for over 5 years and found shorter adults were more likely to develop fatty liver disease, even at the same weight as taller people. Here's why. The hormones that controlled how tall you grew as a kid are the same hormones that controlled how your body builds muscle versus stores fat. If that system ran a little weaker while you were growing, you ended up shorter. And you also ended up with a body that's more prone to storing fat around your organs instead of burning it off. That pattern doesn't reset once you stop growing. So 2 adults can share the exact same BMI, while one of them is stockpiling fat in and around their liver. Early research also links shorter stature to kidney stones and slightly less lung capacity to fall back on if serious illness strikes. Nobody notices your height in a crowd, and your liver's been counting on that same invisibility to stash fat for years. 5 feet 10 to 6 feet 0. You get asked to grab the suitcase from the overhead bin before you've even sat down. Strangers ask, "Do you play basketball?" like it's a legal requirement past a certain height. You've stopped correcting them. Meanwhile, your heart's been quietly building something bigger than everyone else's. Taller people tend to have larger hearts, including bigger upper chambers called atria. Researchers found that with every few inches of extra height, the odds of atrial fibrillation, an irregular heartbeat that starts in those upper chambers, climb substantially. Here's the connection. A bigger atrium means more surface area for the heart's electrical signal to travel across. Picture a stadium wave in a packed stadium versus a small gym. The bigger the crowd, the easier it is for one section to fall out of sync with everyone else. Your heart isn't broken, it just has more room for a rhythm to go rogue. Height also comes with a slightly higher cancer risk across several types, including breast, colon, and skin cancer. The leading theory is simple. Taller bodies have more cells, and more cells means more chances for one of them to mutate over a lifetime. Your legs pay a price too. Taller people are more likely to develop varicose veins, those bulging, twisted veins you sometimes see on someone's calves. Blood has to travel further against gravity to get from your feet back up to your heart, so longer legs mean more pressure pushing down on the veins at the bottom. Everyone hands you the heavy stuff to carry. Turns out your own blood has been carrying something heavy too. 6 feet 1 to 6 feet 3. Before you book a flight, you check the seat pitch. Before you buy a car, you check where your knees hit the dashboard. Furniture has been negotiating with your body your whole life. So has your blood. Your legs are long, and long veins need to carry blood a longer distance to get back up to your heart. That extra distance gives clots more time and more opportunity to form along the way. Researchers found taller people had higher odds of developing blood clots deep in the leg, a condition called deep vein thrombosis. Sometimes these clots break loose and travel to the lungs, where they can be dangerous. Sitting still makes clots more likely for anyone, but a 6-foot 2-inch frame folded into an economy seat has less room to move the leg muscles that normally help push blood upward. Standing up and walking the aisle does more for you than worrying ever will. Your spine faces a similar problem, just further up your body. Extra height means more distance between your hips and your shoulders. That distance acts like a lever, and a longer lever means more force on your lower back every time you bend to lift something. Researchers linked taller stature to higher rates of disc problems, ranging from mild wear to full herniation. Desks, car seats, and door frames built for average height don't help. They just push you into worse posture, more often. Your hips take on their own version of this leverage problem. Longer legs mean a fall travels a greater distance before you hit the ground, which is part of why taller adults face higher rates of hip fracture later in life. You've spent your whole life checking door frames before you walk through them, and your spine has been checking the math before you even bend down. 6 feet 4 inches to 6 feet 7 inches. You didn't choose basketball. Basketball chose you the moment you hit 6'4". Michael Phelps used this exact height range to become the most decorated Olympian ever. Kobe Bryant used his to become a legend on hardwood. Your knees and ankles are about to find out what that decision costs. Jumping is basically a tax your knee pays on landing. The patellar tendon connects your kneecap to your shin bone, and it absorbs the shock every time you come down from a jump. In one study of youth basketball players, about 1 in 5 developed patellar tendinopathy, known as jumper's knee, in a single season. It's actually not your height directly doing this. It's the activities people do in this height group. Jump constantly, landing under more total body weight than a shorter teammate, sending more force through that same tendon every single time. Your feet take on a similar kind of debt. NBA research found dozens of bone stress injuries over a decade, more than half of them in the foot, with some fifth metatarsal fractures, ending careers outright. Bone can heal itself, but only if it gets the time. A packed game schedule doesn't always give it that time. Think of a paperclip, bent once versus bent hundreds of times. Bone can repair damage a single bend causes, but repeated bending eventually wins. Ankle sprains follow the same pattern. A tall, fast body changing direction puts enormous force through one small joint. Phelps's height won him 23 gold medals. Yours has mostly won you an invitation to change light bulbs at every family gathering, and a very personal grudge with your own patellar tendon. 6 feet 9 to 6 feet 10. Stand in a doorway built for someone 5 feet 10 inches, and you'll duck without thinking about it anymore. LeBron James and Magic Johnson live at your exact height, 6 feet 9 inches, and made it look normal on a basketball court. Off the court, your body carries risks doctors barely have enough people your height to study. Picture a water balloon hanging from one finger. The bottom bulges out, but the top stays stretched thin, right where gravity's working hardest. Your lungs do the same thing. A longer lung means more pull on that same thin top spot. Over years, that stretching can wear a tiny weak point into the tissue, called a bleb, basically a pinhole waiting for an excuse. A hard cough is that excuse. It pops the bleb, and your lung starts doing its best sad balloon at the end of the party impression. Doctors call this a spontaneous pneumothorax, and it hits tall, thin young men more than anyone else. Sudden chest pain and shortness of breath out of nowhere. Numbness sneaks up from the other end. Researchers testing foot sensation in thousands of adults found it got more common, past 5 feet 9 inches, climbing further from there. Blame the commute. The nerves running from your spine to your toes are the longest cables in your body, and the longer the cable, the easier it is for the signal to get lost on the way down. 2 more risks trace back to how fast you grew, not how tall you ended up. Rapid growth spurts can stretch and weaken your aorta, the artery carrying blood from your heart, and any spinal curve you had as a kid would have worsened fastest during that same spurt. LeBron built a legacy at 6 feet 9 inches. Your lungs built a pinhole at the exact same height. 6 feet 11 and above. The nurse pulls out a second growth chart because the first one ran out of room at 6 feet 5 inches. Andre the Giant stood around 7 feet 4 inches and became a legend just by walking into a room. Robert Wadlow reached 8 feet 11 inches and needed leg braces to stay upright. Both were shaped in part by something the size of a grape, deep in the brain. That grape-sized tumor sits on the pituitary gland and pumps out extra growth hormone. In a condition called gigantism, the hormone doesn't just lengthen bones, it thickens heart muscle too, the same way steroids bulk up any other muscle. At first, that thicker heart pumps harder than normal, almost too well. Over years, the muscle stops relaxing and the heart struggles to keep up. It's revving an engine past redline for a decade, still looks fast in the driveway, right up until it isn't. That same hormone thickens the soft tissue in your throat, making your airway bigger outside, narrower inside. During sleep, your throat muscles relax, and that tissue can cave in and block airflow all night, like your throat's hosting a party and forgot to invite oxygen. Loud snoring usually gets blamed on just being a big guy. Often it's the first real clue something hormonal is driving the height. Joints and vision pick up the rest of the tab. The same hormone widens joint spaces early, then wears them down. Knees, hips, wrists, all stiff early, and that tumor sits beneath the nerves connecting your eyes to your brain, which is why blurred vision can show up alongside the height. The tallest person in the room might be taking orders from something the size of a grape. Every one of your inches, bossed around by something you could lose in a bowl of cereal. If you liked this video and want to learn more about the human body, check out these other videos.